Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Parks and Recreation Commission for the City of Vacaville, March 3rd, 2021. We appreciate everyone who is participating in tonight's Parks and Recreation teleconference meeting. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20. Please bear with us as we attempt to use remote tools. Instructions to call into the meeting or participate from a computer are provided on the agenda on the city's website at www.cityofvacaville.com. Callers who wish to comment can press *9 to get into the speaking queue. Computer users can click the raise hand button within the Zoom controls to request to speak. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Berumen?
Present.
Commissioner Leonard?
Here.
Commissioner Lujan?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
And present.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Here.
Vice Chair Rucker?
Here.
And Chair McMahon?
Here. Thank you very much. Vice Chair Rucker, good evening, sir. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. If you would do the honors of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, sir.
I would be honored. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Rucker. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or changes to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion, please.
This is Commissioner Thompson. I motion approval.
And a second.
This is Commissioner Berumen. Second.
We have Thompson and Berumen, and a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Berumen?
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard?
Aye.
Commissioner Lujan?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rucker?
Aye.
Chair McMahon?
Aye. Very good. Agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes. We have 2 meetings here for February the 3rd, 2021. And we also have the minutes of the special meeting for February 6th of 2021. Are there any changes or corrections to any of the minutes for either of those meetings, ma'am? Okay, I see no corrections. I will accept a motion for approval, please.
Commissioner Berumen to motion to accept the minutes.
Very good. And a second.
Commissioner Leonard, second.
We have Berumen and Leonard, and roll call vote.
Commissioner Berumen?
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard?
Aye.
Commissioner Lujan?
Abstain.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rucker?
Aye.
Chair McMahon?
Aye. Agenda item number 5, communications. Madam Secretary, are there any correspondence or written correspondence this evening?
Yes, Chair McMahon. I believe Reggie will share what was received.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Chair McMahon. We did have written correspondence that was forwarded on to the commission earlier today. The correspondence included information on pickleball courts and tennis courts over at Three Oaks Community Center. And we have since reached out to the person that sent the correspondence, and we've worked that out. So that should be in your email. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this evening, Reggie Hubbard will be our acting director. So we appreciate it, sir. Thank you for that explanation for the correspondence. Item number 6, reports of the Parks Manager, David Jacob.
Good evening, Commission Chair and Commissioners. So tonight, my report, we have, in addition to our normal routine maintenance, we've completed the replacement of the floors in the concessions, or call them snack bars, at Keating Park. So both of those buildings at K1 and K2, those floors were replaced with epoxy coating. And then also this concession at Centennial and Arlington Parks. The same thing, those were, floors were replaced with epoxy, and that's to help with the Solano County inspections for the food service that are done there. And then also we're working to complete reinstalling all of the basketball hoops on all the courts in the parks. We're hoping to have that done by this Friday. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, sir. And I will ask the commission, do you have any questions for our park manager, David Jacobson, at this point? David, I see no hands. Well done, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving right along, we are now at item number 7, presentations. There are no presentations this evening, which brings us to agenda item number 8, business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda that are within the commission's subject matters jurisdiction. And we ask that maximum 3 minutes per speaker, please. Madam Secretary, do we have any hands raised from the public, ma'am?
No hands are raised, Chair.
Very good. We will close public comment and we are moving right along this evening. We are now at business number 9A. Tonight we have Acting Director Reggie Hubbard. If you would please introduce 9A, please, sir.
Most certainly. Thank you, Commission Chair and Commissioners. Tonight we have the presentation of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Actually, we have an overview of the master plan. And presenting this item will be Lauren Schmidt from MIG. And although this will be an overview of the plan and updates of changes to the plan, we do have the plan in its entirety if needed, if we need to refer to the plan. So at this time, I will turn it over to Lauren Schmidt from MIG. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. It's good to be back with the commission and following up from our work session last month. So I'm going to keep the presentation brief tonight and focus on some of the changes made by your feedback, the public's feedback, and Planning Commission feedback. So Tracy, if you could go to the next slide, please. So just a little reminder, so back in January 29th, the public draft was released of the PRMP. We followed that up and with a Saturday commission and public workshop, got some really great feedback, which you can see in tiny form, the notes that we took live during that meeting. We then went to the Planning Commission on February 16th, shared with them some recommended changes that coming out of that meeting, and that was in a memo that was included in their packet. And then based on the Planning Commission meeting and the February 6th feedback, we made revisions to the PRMP and released that last Friday. And so here we are tonight. And so what I want to share, next slide, please, is kind of the takeaways of this month of feedback. So the structure is the same as the draft that you saw before. The 6th chapter structure with the supporting appendices. So there are no changes to that or to the overall goals, but there are changes that affected each chapter. Some of those were language suggestions and those kinds of things. But tonight, what I want to focus on is a couple of the bigger picture items and share with you where those changes were made. So next one, please. And so I've got this organized into feedback from the February 6th workshop and then a section on Planning Commission feedback. So the big takeaways from February 6th were to elevate and expand on the discussion of diversity, equity, inclusion throughout the PRMP And I'll share a couple key places where we did that. In the work session, we talked about bringing it up front into the introduction, looking at the vision, and then there's also additions throughout in terms of recommendations underneath each of the goals. We took a look through all of those and added language to some of those goals. And then the other big one was the addition of an additional criteria in the action plan. Another big topic was making sure this plan addresses Indigenous people and the tribes that were associated with the region and Indigenous people who are still here today, with the idea that Vacaville could be moving towards a land acknowledgement. And so there's a specific set of new recommendations that I'll share with you in a moment that address that. And there are other little tweaks throughout the document to make sure there is recognition that there have been people living on the land in Vacaville for a long time and traditions on the land. There was some feedback about making sure that underrepresented communities are really engaged. And so there are some additional recommendations about future outreach to underrepresented communities as this plan goes forward, making sure that there is active engagement. And then there were several recommendations or several pieces of feedback around sports fields and making sure that those were getting their maximum usability and that there was just a little more attention to sports fields. And so that came out in Goal 1 as well as in the project list and in the action plan. So next one, please, Tracy. A couple of the places where we elevated diversity, equity, and inclusion. On page 4 in the introduction, we added a section, and I thank Commissioner Vasquez for suggesting using the NRPA definition. And so we thought that was a really good addition that was, totally in line with the way this plan was approached. So that is kind of enshrined and embraced right up front. And that definition then is infused in the goals. The other place in the vision, we made some tweaks to the vision, which you can see on page 28 that call out being an inclusive place. And there's a couple tweaks to that language to elevate diversity, equity, and inclusion and weave those terms into the vision to make sure it's really front and center. Next one, please. And so, Play for All Park, which also came up at the Planning Commission, that's an example of a project that you have going on now that's looking specifically at play for all, right in its name, inclusive play for all members of the community. So that's just one current example and is elevated in the action plan and called out in the project list. Next one, please. So there are 4 new recommendations under Goal 2 that address Indigenous people and tribes. And so it talks about individual steps. So reaching out and beginning to have discussions with tribes that were associated with the Vacaville area and working towards building a land acknowledgement. There's also recommendations around conveying Indigenous connections to the land throughout the park system, and also considering changes to some of the practices and policies to support traditional cultural practices like gathering. That will be something that the feedback from the tribes and from Indigenous communities is going to be pretty important to make sure policies are inclusive. And the final one is about working towards a land acknowledgement. But that's kind of the final step after relationship building. Next one, Tracy. So back at the workshop, there was a lot of great feedback about some specifics under each goal, and some commissioners followed that up with written feedback, which was really helpful. And so we incorporated all of that as you look through the goals, particularly if you wrote in afterwards. I think you'll find that we moved in and captured most everything you pointed out. But some of the big takeaways under goal 1, recommendation around splash pads, incorporating those into community parks, so that there's a free option for water play. Under goal 3, adding a recommendation about bike safety programs and really focusing on youth. Goal 4 and/or goal 5, talking about outreach and engagement, but acknowledging existing community organizations and user groups. Under goal 5, a recommendation that talks about program affordability and accessibility, and emphasizing the importance of free and low-cost options. There were a number of items under 6, so addressing staff training and engagement and outreach, clarifying timing, addressing technology and customer service, and then incorporating 2020 census data. So all of those were incorporated under goal 6. And then goal 7, adding a recommendation about using the general fund for park and programming improvements. Next one. There were a number of project-specific comments, and that included coming from a few minor tweaks to the park development guidelines. There was some public works feedback about assumptions and costing in the capital project list, and so we made a few adjustments to that. And then more importantly, coming from the community and the commission discussion were some tweaks to the 5-year action plan. So making sure that any recently approved master plans were included in the 5-year action plan. One of the ways of elevating sports was adding a sports field enhancement project, similar to the trail enhancement project that is a 10-year program with funding allocated each year to upgrade and improve sports fields throughout the system. So that was added to the project list, and then it was also prioritized into the action plan. Green Tree Park, adding that to the 5-year action plan and making sure Play for All Park as an active project is on that action plan too. Next one, Tracy. So all of that went into the Planning Commission memo. Planning Commission supported the changes that came from the commission and the public. And there was other feedback from the commissioners and from the folks in attendance. So a lot of discussion about Play for All Park as a real crown jewel for the city, and you know, the partnership between Rotary, between the community members, that been a long-term effort that is really starting to pay off. And so making sure that is noted throughout the plan. Another piece of feedback was, you know, there's a few special situations in the city, and making sure that in the design development guidelines, that in age-restricted facilities, age-restricted communities, there should be an allowance so that other types of facilities could be considered in place of playgrounds. There were some additional revisions suggested to the action plan, and then there was no specific feedback, but Play for All Parks, some specific sites. There's a discussion about those. Lagoon Valley Park and its unique nature, the need to consider access. It is a real magnet, but it is a little bit harder to get to without a car. You know, maybe looking at transit or free admission. Again, Play for All Park, and then Green Tree Park and the planning that's going on around that, the sites there. Next one, Tracy. So the revised project list and action plan. So with the tweaks and the feedback incorporated, the totals of the project list changed a little bit, but it's within the same range. Community parks increased, neighborhood parks and regional parks stayed about the same. But where you see changes are in the action plan. So remember, the capital project list is the whole list of every site and every big idea around special facilities in the city. The action plan is the rolling 5-year plan. So next one, Tracy. So one of the key things with the action plan, which is the rolling 5-year priority project, and the structure for that, there wasn't any feedback that changed that structure, where that rolling 5-year action plan will be updated annually with input from the commission and be used in the annual budgeting and capital improvement planning system using the criteria that are in the plan. And so there were some suggested shifts, in terms of which comes first, although they're not a prioritized set. And the addition, there were 6 criteria before, and the one additional one is advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those projects that are addressing gaps or are making sure that the same services are available, or the same quality parks are available around the community, or special types of programming initiatives, certain types of free programming would all kind of fall under that criterion. And so that's added to the list. So how that started to play out, all the feedback for the action plan, starting on the next one. So there were some additions, but the action plan still, the intent is there's new park development, there should be a mix of project types. That's part of what the criteria will help do. Next one, so you can see Green Tree Park. The Sports Field Improvement Program is the third line down. And so in this first 5 years, adding lighting to one field at Centennial Park and one at Arlington Park are the priorities. You see Play for All Park is down, second from the bottom. And then next one. There are a few tweaks to the neighborhood centers and 2 new centers and the renovations at the Cooper site in particular. And so just a reminder how this works is, each year this list will get revisited and new things can be added, or, if there is a particular effort that's on it, let's say there's a grant or a particular funding partnership and that didn't pan out, you may decide to take that off the action plan for now. But it's intended to be a living tool to help take advantage of opportunities and partnerships as they come up and funding sources, and to always keep, a short-term plan and then a midterm plan of the projects that are actively being advanced from that longer project list. So with that, that's an overview of the kind of bigger changes in the document. And I would turn it back to the chair for questions and discussion.
Lauren, thank you very much, ma'am. I absolutely appreciate the effort on your part. I know there were a lot of valid concerns and questions at our last meeting, the workshop meeting. And it would seem that you've addressed those. And at this point, we will turn it over for commissioner comments or questions. Commissioner Vasquez.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Commissioner Vasquez. Thank you for this presentation. It was really great to see all the additions and feedback incorporated into the document, and some of the goals really expanded from the feedback from both Parks and Rec, Planning Commission, and all the public who attended those past two meetings. And it's really, just want to say, it's really been great to hear from the public on this plan. So really just appreciative of the public attending these meetings and calling in and giving feedback on a plan that directly impacts their daily lives. And so just thankful for that. I also wanted to just thank Director Walker and MIG for being receptive to the feedback that I sent in about the plan. And I spent some time after our Saturday meeting compiling all of the feedback that I had and putting it to paper and sending it in. So I was thankful that to see some of those incorporated. I did think, though, I did listen to Planning Commission, and I thought that there was some interesting feedback about the document and goals and priorities. I think it's always helpful to hear other people's perspectives on these types of documents. And just wondering, I didn't see that in the notes here, but how I believe it was the chair of Planning Commissions mentioned something, like how are we prioritizing these goals? Like they're all priorities, right? That everything literally in this document is a priority. And just wondering how we did, I guess, number those or rank them in order from 1 to 7. Was that based on feedback from the community, or how did that happen?
Sure. So a point of clarification, the goals are numbered simply for tracking, they could have been lettered, A1, A2, A3. Goals in the way plans are typically approached are a higher level element that helps describe the vision. And so the goals are what you're moving towards. It's those prioritization criteria that are the tool for deciding how to use your resources. And, that's why that touches on resource availability and moving forward projects and aligning efforts. And so that's your tool for prioritizing. And the way the goals are structured, they're topical. And so they weren't designed to be, the least important thing is, but programming is only number 5 compared to parks. They're all at the same level, the way this is structured. And so if the numbering, implies a prioritization, maybe letters would be a better choice. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Okay, thank you. That's actually very helpful. And I really appreciate that the prioritization criteria was expanded. I think those are really great. I did have some additional feedback after going back through the document. I still think that the statement on page 14 of the document that we're meeting people where we are is still misleading based on where the pop-up events occurred. I provided this feedback in writing, but I still think it's somewhat misleading. And, I would advocate for actually it being removed and just stating that we held these pop-up events, not necessarily that we were meeting people where they are, because as you can see, we've got tons of parks all across town that we could have, quote unquote, met people where they are for feedback on our master plan. Another note, there's a statement on page 22 about the sports facility complex stating that adding a new mixed sports complex is a top priority. And I'm just wondering where that statement came from. I noticed it the first time around, but I think I just wanted to just cite it here publicly because my concern about that statement is top priority based on what? Community feedback, kind of like where is the statement coming from? And I only challenge this because, the constituents that I know and hear from, are a lot in the baseball, softball community. And I think that while, of course, many of us would love a new mixed use sports facility complex, many of them are, concerned about their existing community parks that they use and neighborhood parks that they use for youth sports. And so, and renovation of, right? And so I think that while it's helpful that those were included in the table 6.4 action plan, I just worry about that statement because I'm not sure whose top priority that is and where kind of that came from. And I think it also kind of goes hand in hand with, the Planning Commission's comments about what are the priorities, right? If we mention these are top priorities throughout random pieces of the document, and yet the document has, prioritization criteria, what does that mean? It feels a little confusing. So, I would also question why that was included.
Yeah. Well, one thing just about when the public engagement was done and sports complex, the way it was used during the public engagement, I would say was more general. So most of your community parks, you have a gathering of fields, and, which is a complex. But over the course of this project, and the timeline, is a couple years long, in the middle of it, a study around a specific sports field complex. And so I think you bring up a really good point that the specific sports field complex project that's in the project list, which is something that was looked at partially through this project because there was interest in sports fields. It could be confusing. So I'm just looking at the language and
Yeah, I think the use of prioritization is what makes it challenging for me. So throwing that out there is another suggestion. I'm not sure how feedback is going to be incorporated after tonight's meeting, but again, I think this is probably our last opportunity. So I'm kind of just laying it all out there of what I see finally after doing another review of the document. Another thing, I still really don't feel like goal 1A10, the table 4.1 about eliminating population standards. I don't really feel like that was really answered and what comparables we're using to do this, and is this a standard practice for cities? So just putting that out there again as a caution. Starting on page 33, all of the numbering is off. It goes from goal 1A to goal 1B and then back to 1A through page 37. So that should probably be fixed before it's presented to council. I also am still really concerned about goal 1B6, where we're saying that we're prohibiting additional exclusive use agreements. I know, that we do have some agreements or use agreements with some youth sports leagues, but I wonder what does that do in the future for other sports leagues who may want to come in and have use agreements with the city. It's also, to me, odd to add something in a goal that is actually prohibiting something rather than that being like a practice. So that's a little odd to me. Goal 6B4, I still think that we need to add a specific bullet for training and development for staff around diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't personally feel it can be lumped under quote unquote inclusive programming. I think that this should really be a standalone bullet, and really because I think, as staff, Parks and Rec staff approach projects, planning, programming, all of those things, that they are using a lens of equity and inclusion through all of those projects. And that can't really happen unless they receive some sort of ongoing training around diversity, equity, inclusion. And I know this is probably a new concept for City of Vacaville staff, but I don't think it's new in terms of, like education and other, private fields that are looking at equity inclusion now. And I think that it's really important that this needs to trickle down from the top, and that staff should receive ongoing training that impacts their daily work and approach to kind of all things Park and Rec. I also noticed that there was a goal 7B9 that was specifically a bullet around proposing offset costs to user groups who maintain the fields themselves. And I'm just wondering what prompted the removal of that bullet from this final document, and why that was excluded. Yeah. And maybe you don't know, maybe that was staff that deleted it. I don't know. Do staff know why that was removed? Well, it can be noted. And then I have the other thing was chapter 5. I see that lighting was added as a minimum park feature in the neighborhood parks, but it wasn't included in the community parks. And it was added as part of the neighborhood parks as like low lighting, like for safety and security. I think that also probably needs to be added for community parks, specifically safety for users. Also in chapter 5 under regional parks, natural resource preservation is listed twice, 2 bullets on page 87 and 88. On table 6.2, I really hope that if we are considering a new senior center, that's considered for the 8-7 side Southtown, Leisuretowne area. But I'm sure that's probably something for another day. Table 6.4, the formatting seems to be way off in our printed document. It's just all all the font is all messy. So I'm wondering if that can be cleaned before it goes to council. And also it calls Patch Park. I think that's in reference to Alpatch Park. And lastly, I did mention in my feedback in writing too about the document. The main document mentions 12 pop-up events, and the appendix C1 states 11, and it looks like the Brendan Theater outreach event is missing from the appendix. So I don't know if that needs to be included, because if data was collected from that event that's being incorporated into the appendix, then that probably should be added as a bullet, because there's only 11 bullets on that document in appendix C1. And then finally, my last just kind of thought, and maybe this is for staff and maybe it's for a later commission meeting and discussion, but once this is approved by Parks and Rec, and assuming it's approved by City Council, you know, what's next? How does Parks and Rec staff use this on a daily basis and incorporate this into kind of like their everyday work in dealing with various master plans, programming, planning, kind of all of the things. And that's all I have. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for that, Commissioner Vasquez. Lauren, would you like to address any of the later comments by Commissioner Vasquez, ma'am?
We've been furiously writing, and Tracy's been furiously writing to capture some of those. I think just overall in chapter 2, you know, when the different engagement summaries were written, like each one was, okay, what were the top priorities from this? So I think overall that chapter, just looking at that language to say participants were interested in, just to remove the word priorities, because your point that, well, it says priorities here, but it's really, you know, the action plan is determining what our 5-year set of priorities is. I think that's a kind of global cleanup that looks like it would be easy to make, that cleans that up. Some of the specifics, I think, you know, these are good points for the commission to talk about. The one that you mentioned was dropped. That one we'll have to go back and do a little looking at, because, you know, we have a whole bunch of spreadsheets as well as our notes. And so I would need to go back and do a little compare and like, okay, what happened to that one and why? I won't be able to answer that one tonight. Most of the other things that you've talked about are, you know, additive. Hey, add this in here. And some of them seem like they are, it would be good to hear other commissioner feedback to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then as far as going forward, I would say that is best answered by Reggie.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, moving forward, I mean, a lot of the projects as we move through this document, say, you know, 6 months, a year down the road, they're going to be driven by the resources, of course, budget, et cetera. And as you're aware, you know, there's no priority, so to speak, on some of the projects that we have in this document. And actually, some of the projects are happening right now. So it's going to depend, and we'll be, you know, bringing updates back to the commission as we move through these projects. Now, as new development comes on board and things like that happen, and developer fees are coming to the city, those will drive projects as well. So there's various items that would drive a project to move forward and move it in priority fashion. So there are a lot of moving pieces there. But overall, I would say moving forward, we would bring projects for review, for input and feedback to the commission. But at the same time, new projects and things like that, it's all based on resources and based on budget. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Commissioner Vasquez, but if there's some specific, you can probably re-ask it because it was, you said a lot and there was a lot of great information in there.
Thank you, Acting Director Hubbard. Commissioner Vasquez, does that answer your question, ma'am? Do you have any other follow-up questions or comments for either Lauren or Reggie, ma'am?
No, I don't think so. And I'm happy to send this feedback on. But I think I am concerned because it still feels like it's in draft format and not necessarily at final stages. But that's just my thought. But I can definitely send in my feedback.
Okay, thank you for that, ma'am. Commissioner Leonard.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to recognize Commissioner Vasquez and all the energy and time and thought that she put into this. It was nice to see a lot of her feedback from our Saturday workshop be incorporated. I think it is definitely a better document and a better plan in large part to seeing her suggestions being reflected in the document. So thank you, Commissioner Vasquez, for all the time and energy you put into this. I was also really pleased to see recognition of not only Indigenous people, but an effort to incorporate native plant species throughout the document. That was repeated throughout the document. I think that's important for us as a city, and I was really happy to see that. There was a piece, and forgive me if I missed it because it is a really big document, so it's good. It's a good possibility that I did miss it. We had talked about in our intention and kind of a philosophical approach, if we couldn't provide what's the word I'm looking for, a facility or a feature to the extent that the community is asking for, that we make a commitment to be open-minded to some version of that. So an example, if we can't fit or can't afford a full-size soccer pitch, are we willing in our mindset to just look at all of our parks and can we do a mini soccer pitch and a mini, and just kind of be really inventive in that. And that might have been reflected in there and I missed it, but that was something that I think is just really important. And in terms of meeting the needs of our communities where they live, so that they engage with our parks in the ways that we hope so. But I think it was really nice to see all the input from the community, from the commissioner and the planning commission be rolled into this document. I know that's a lot of work and a big lift for everybody involved. So great job.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Leonard, and I agree. It is nice to see the feedback has been addressed this evening, so thank you very much. Commissioner Lujan.
Hi, thank you so much for all this work. And again, thank you to Commissioner Vasquez for really diving in and making sure that communities are represented. And I appreciate the additions. And I agree that just with inclusive policies being present, I do support the need for interpretation of these policies as well moving forward to be consistent with the intent of what is passed. Which is why I do support the cultural competencies through training of staff that we may create land use and parks that provide a safe, accessible space where our community can come together and develop empathy and friendship and a positive future for the next generation. Regarding also the sports complex, I know there is continued discussion on this, and I do encourage further analysis. For that particular project that includes emerging competitors located in nearby cities, as there are many other cities nearby already in the process of creating sports complexes and maybe a lot farther in that process. So just making sure as we move forward that there is, recent and updated information. And I agree that I think that I know there will be continued revisions, and I agree that I think as we move forward, this is a very important document to capture basically the lens in which the Parks and Recreation Commission makes decisions and recommendations. So I appreciate the thought that went into this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make, I like all of the feedback that's been incorporated into the document. I think it's significantly improved from when we saw it last. Commissioner Vasquez brought up one item that I wanted to elaborate on a little bit, and that is, it is on page 34 of the revised document where it says prohibit additional exclusive use agreements for fields and other facilities in public parks. There's a statement about an exit clause for city for concessionaires. And then it goes on with the next sentence and says encourage partnerships with user groups. And this seems a little bit contradictory to me. And the reason why personally think this is important because our user groups, the leagues, whether it be VYSL or softball leagues, football leagues, lacrosse leagues, the user group leagues are a resource that I don't think that we have leveraged enough in our history with park use, where we can use those leagues, those organizations, under contract, whether it be exclusive or otherwise for their season, to maintain, facilitate, do things to a complex. And I think that helps, Parks and Recreation staff, it helps, public works staff, it helps everybody when we use these user groups to provide improvements and maintenance. And so I think we need to, at least from my perspective, I think we need to not overlook that. That's an important philosophical perspective to leverage those user groups, in my opinion. So I just wanted that noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other commissioner comments or questions at this point? Okay, I see no further commissioner comments. We will close commissioner comments at this point, and at this point we will open public comment. I see a hand raised, Tracy.
Yes. Wendy, I will open your mic.
Hi, good evening, Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Brecken. I just wanted to thank you all for all the work you're putting into this to make Vacaville a more happy place, so that there's more things to do and we attract visitors as well as businesses. I haven't been involved since the inception of this project. I attended the Planning Commission meeting and then I tried to look at this carefully. And one of my, the thing that hit me, that struck me the most was that the recreational needs assessment from 2013 specifically talked about, standards, and, we're going to need so many tennis courts and volleyball courts and basketball courts and senior centers for per 1,000 people, for example. And all of a sudden we're eliminating those standards. And I haven't heard, I tried to read the report. Maybe I read the whole thing, but I didn't see it in there and I didn't really hear it in the Planning Commission. So my big question is, what caused the elimination of standards? Because, when we're searching for funding to, get some of these things actually done, it would seem, it all needs big money. And it would seem like, pointing to the standards that we've had for the last however many years, 20 years, I think the standards were there before 2013, to say, hey, we're deficient, we're 10 basketball courts, or it gives you kind of something, a rock hard standard to lean on to say this, this is not acceptable for a community of our size. We have not put in the parks and the facilities as per growth of our population. So that's my first big question. And the second is, I'm also concerned about prioritization, because if you guys aren't going to prioritize, I understand there's criteria, but when do they get prioritized and who's going to mainly be doing that? It would seem like the commission should be prioritizing, but that's just my thought. Also, Corderos Park seems to really be, when you go there, it's a park for thousands of people in North Village. And it's good that you're planning on putting in a new park as development occurs, but the current park is pretty plain. There's a little structure there for kids, and it's mainly just grass. and walking area. And it would seem like you need more trees there. I'm not sure why we're not enhancing that park. It seems like we need more trees, you know, maybe a baseball field, just things to, you know, I understand you're going to put in a basketball, or you're considering a basketball court. Yeah, definitely put in a basketball court. There's nothing there for all of those people. They have to basically travel to do something at a park. As far as lighting, I understand. I was, you know, I was trying to understand, are lighting at parks going to happen so that night games for baseball and such can occur? So those are my questions. And again, I really appreciate all you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Wendy. Would anyone from the staff like to address Wendy's questions?
I could address some of those, and Hugh and Reggie, you know, if you'd rather go first, that's fine too.
Lauren, if you'd like to go ahead and address first, and then we can go ahead and turn it over to Reggie and
Sure. So I'll start with standards. So population-based standards are a tool that the kind of state-of-the-art in parks and recreation planning has moved more towards experience-based. And so where you see, you know, the suite of amenities, you just commented on this in Corderos Park, it doesn't really have enough to do. And so where parks and recreation planning has moved is to really look at the package of experiences that a park provides, and also this idea of a kind of a park shed, that you have a park within a half-mile distance, a community park within a larger distance, so that you end up with acreage that's distributed and you end up with quality parks. And so the idea when you're the standards, that was the way things were done when your original plan was done. It was also something that has been hung on to. The state of the art has moved to really look more at design and what's kind of your minimum package of experiences that you want to support in each type of park. And so that's why you see the Chapter 5 edition of the design guidance. That also leaves the door open for things like emerging sports. The previous standards did not address pickleball. So if somebody comes along and wants pickleball, they're sort of out of luck by your by the standards that you had. And so you've got guidance in the park development guidelines that talk about which types of parks should have fields, and talks about lighting, and talks about the intent of those, so that if a new idea comes along, bike polo, which you see sometimes on tennis courts. And if that becomes the next big thing and it has its own special facility, you have a way to consider it and decide if it's appropriate for one of your park types. So that's standards. In terms of the prioritization, as I mentioned, the idea is that action plan gets updated annually, and it's an effort that staff and the commission both contribute to. Probably staff would come to your annual commission work session, action planning work session with, an initial draft, and then you would work on it together, the commission and staff. But that is the intent, and that's the way that's set up. And so then lighting, the sports field project category, sports field enhancements, would allow for addition of lighting, upgrades to field surfacing, conversion to artificial turf, as well as addition of new fields. So yeah, the intent is to allow lighting where it is, especially in community parks that are set up and that are larger. And then your final piece of feedback was around on the project list that Corderos Park really should get an enhancement of some type to make it really be that kind of place that people want to spend time with at, and that really meets the design guidelines. So that is a pretty straightforward change. Hugh and Reggie, anything else you want to add or follow up on?
Yeah, well, no, thanks, Lauren. I don't want to be redundant, but it sounds like, I think you covered the majority of it. I know priority keeps coming up, and the priorities for the projects are they're going to shift, and they're going to shift based on community need, based on funding, and et cetera. One thing that we didn't see coming, like you said, 5-6 years ago was pickleball, but we keep hearing an outcry of we need more pickleball courts and pickleball time. So those things are incorporated into the new Nelson Park Master Plan because we've heard that. So that became a priority. So it's going to be community input along with commission recommendations with regard to how the projects move and fluctuate with regard to priority. And related to the field lighting on the ball fields, we're seeing that maybe not being able to build more ball fields, but to add more time or play time would just be to add lights. So that sort of solves the issue with maybe not needing more fields, but adding more time on the field by adding lights where you can play night games. So now that's a priority, and that is in the 5-year plan and the 5-year action plan. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Hugh, but those are the priority and the lighting. Those, and you also talked about I think that was it. Thank you.
Yes, I can add a little bit to that. Thank you, Reggie. It's wonderful when you have plenty of money and you can do all these great things that we need. But I think Corderos Park was a great example. It was almost an exercise in understanding how our park development fees are insufficient for developing the type of parks that we are used to seeing with the various amenities. So in the case of Corderos Park, we had to cut that development to the bare bones just to get the basic park in. Have you ever heard of a park that doesn't have, very many trees or doesn't have benches to sit on? We initially included a basketball court and a number of other things were included, but had to be cut. In the end, that budget had to be augmented by $650,000. That was over and above what the neighborhood park portion from the North Village development should pay. So that just accentuates or really brings to a clear point that we didn't have enough funding to build our basic neighborhood park. And so you're right, it is a very basic and unamenitized park. So back to the lighting and a number of the other things that we would like to prioritize and include, that'd be all wonderful, but it comes down to whether you can actually afford it or not.
Thank you very much, Lauren, Reggie, and Hugh. I think you hit all of Wendy's comments or concerns and questions. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Madam Secretary, it looks like we have another caller on the line from the public.
Yes, Santiago, I will open your mic.
Good evening, Santiago.
Hello. So ING at the February 6th meeting, we asked for comparisons and to other municipalities of the size of Vacaville. We would like to hear some of that, and they were not presented today. Pickleball, I'm sorry, but pickleball is just another form of tennis. We don't need more pickleballs. What we need is a dedicated soccer field. We have no goalposts for soccer. Vacaville Youth Soccer League uses that one they have their field which they have to maintain, and so they keep out the public. And so unless you come with your own goalpost, that's the only way to practice soccer. And I think we have a big community here that enjoys soccer, and I think we need to make an effort for that. Cordero's, yeah, it's no amenities, but why was it cut? You keep saying it's cut, but why was it cut? I would like to hear about that. So to Commissioner Thompson, you made a comment about those who utilize the leagues and stuff to pitch in, to maintain the fields and all that. So we keep going outside, which that unfortunately will increase the cost to some of the families and price some people out, which is unfair. But like I said, also we continue to say if the funds are there or the grants, we need to go to the city and ask for this money. Our citizens deserve have better access to parks with more amenities. And that's my comment for tonight. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that. Lauren, would you like to address Santiago's comments or questions, ma'am?
That you bring up about not being able to access the fields, that's actually what the policy, I'm just looking for recommendation, is trying to address, so that in the future, if there's agreements with groups, that there be community access allowed for the reasons that you stated. And in terms of the goal posts, those are those could be addressed through the sports field project, because what you're talking about is a piece of equipment that you would be able to use in neighborhood and other parks. So I think that would be able to be addressed through that project type in the action plan. And for sure, you have fewer soccer fields than communities of your size. You just have very, very few of those. And so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you're trying to get more access for practice and more ability to accommodate some of that here in town. So I think that's in line with what we heard from the community, and also with this idea of giving some specific project attention in a specific category to the sports fields and improving those.
If I can, Commissioner McMahon, if I can piggyback on that for a second.
Absolutely, yes, sir, please do.
So what Santiago, it was a good point, and it sort of speaks to Commissioner Thompson's point on page 34, where it talks about exclusive use. And the leagues, with the contracts that we have with the leagues, does not give them exclusive use to the fields. It provides priority use, right? So it's a little bit of the terminology. So the only group that has exclusive use to fields would be a group like VYSL. So the leagues will have a priority use during the season, but the community can use the fields, in the off season. And so I think this is what that's trying to get at. Exactly what Santiago was saying is that they don't have access to the fields that are fenced off at Horse Creek, but because that's an exclusive use field, and that's sort of what that speaks to. Versus the little leagues that have priority use during the season, but during the other part of the year, the community would have use of those facilities.
Thank you very much for that, sir. And Lauren, maybe I missed it. I think you were cut off right at the beginning of your initial statement, ma'am. But Santiago did ask about comparing other municipalities of comparable size. Did you address that, ma'am?
I didn't address that because we've been focusing on refining the plan. And so I didn't come back tonight with additional comparisons. And so I have nothing to share there tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, any other callers from the public, ma'am?
I see no other hands, Chair.
Thank you very much. We will close public comment, and I'd like to bring it back to the commission for further comments or questions for either staff or the consultant. Okay, I see, there we go. Commissioner Vasquez.
Hi, Chair McMahon, Commissioner Vasquez. I'm wondering if you're agreeable if I could make a motion to include some of the suggestions and revisions that I mentioned tonight. If commissioners think that that's appropriate, I could make a motion and somewhat summarize some of the, I think maybe, I know I spoke a lot, so let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6 or 7 revisions. I'd be happy to do that. I do think some of them are important revisions, but I also really haven't heard from other commissioners about kind of the information that I threw out there. So just throwing that out there, I'd be happy to make a motion with revisions.
I absolutely appreciate that. And I think we will maybe get there. What we can do is maybe look at it as it's published. We'll leave it up to the commission for a motion and a second here at some point. And then, you know, if it fails that, then absolutely we can look at other ways to get there tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chair Rucker.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was going to say in terms of the revisions that Commissioner Vasquez had, honestly, I mean, they were all very thorough and thought out from last meeting to this meeting. So yeah, I would certainly be open to hearing more of those and making sure that they are included going forward. You know, just because honestly, I think this is a great plan. I just think her additions make it even better.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for that, Vice Chair. Commissioner Lujan.
Yes, I just have a quick question regarding this as well. Now, when we vote for this, and I know it says in there the standards of land to the population in that, and seeing that as we are already falling short, I'm just wondering if we vote on this, how does that does that make something that the city has to be compliant with? Or I just want to know in terms of becoming a standard with that land to population, how that's going to be effective also and enforced moving forward, if that is something that is a part of it.
Thank you very much. Would someone from the staff or the consultant like to address Commissioner Lujan's question, please?
Chair McMahon, I can take a shot at that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so Shannon, the standards that I think you're referring to, which would be the total of 4.5 acres per 1,000 residents, would remain unchanged. Those are actually documented in our general plan. And so we would continue to aspire to attain those standards. Was I able to answer your question directly?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering about like if it becomes a part of the general plan and it's still in there, I guess, is it just ongoing efforts, or how do we, I guess, for accountability for how we're moving forward to make sure that our land is protected as well, as that's a constant, you know, discussion about housing. So to make sure that the land to what's used is for parks and recreation to our population that's growing, that gap is not going to continue to widen. And so I just want to share that concern as well.
Yes, that's a very good point. I can assure you that with our new subdivisions, we are actually narrowing that gap actively. By the area that we're most short would be in the neighborhood park component as opposed to the community park component. And over the last number of years, we've been able to tighten that up and get closer to our goal of 1.8 acres per 1,000 residents for neighborhood parks. And I think with every significant subdivision that we add, we're getting closer and closer to that. The other goal that we're short in is regional park acreage, and that really has to do with the development of the land which is already there. So in other words, Lagoon Valley Park is already there. It's just not developed enough for our use, and in some cases, the existing development that we inherited from the county has deteriorated. So we need to continue to work on that, but that would be with funding. It's not a problem of not having the land. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Hugh.
Thank you very much for that. Any further commissioner comments? Okay, I see no hands raised. And I would just like to say this. This has been a 3.5 year or so project that our staff and the consultant have invested hundreds, if not thousands of hours in this current Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The city staff will use this master plan through the planning horizon of 2035 to track progress, adjust the course, and ensure the momentum is focused, to ensure that our system is being served and that the community is being served. Diversity, equity, inclusion is foundational to this master plan. And all the points brought up tonight would indicate that. So I appreciate all the work that's been done on it. It's exciting that we're nearly there, and hopefully we can get there this evening. So with that said, now would be an appropriate time for a motion for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan approval and recommendation of the draft Parks and Recreation Master Plan to the City Council. Are there any commissioners willing to make a motion this evening? Commissioner Vasquez.
Hi, Chair McMahon. Sorry, I'm just giggling over here. I would love to make a motion to approve the Parks and Rec Master Plan with the following amendments.
We can actually, go ahead. Sorry, ma'am.
I'll speak a little slowly so that way they can be transcribed. And again, I can also send them after the fact if it's approved. So it's going to be a little bit of a long motion.
Okay.
So.
Well, let's go here. So we got no motion for its the way it's currently published. So with that said, Commissioner Vasquez, are you ready to make a motion now with the amendments, or do you need a few minutes, ma'am?
Yes, I can make it now. So motion to approve the document with the following amendments. On page 14, revising the statement, meeting people where they are. Page 22, revising the statement that the mixed sports complex is a top priority. Revisions to page 33 through 37, just with numbering. The numbering was off. Page 64, goal 6B4, adding a bullet to that includes staff professional development and training around diversity, equity, inclusion. Page 85, including in the minimum park standards and community parks to include safety lighting, like it's stated in neighborhood parks. Page 87 and 88 just has a duplicate bullet of natural resource preservation. And page 107, table 6.4 is missing Al from Patch Park. And the formatting seems to be just off in the font. And then on Appendix C1, just including Brendan Theater outreach, if that was included as part of the appendix data.
Okay, I think I got all that. Commissioner Vasquez, what again was on page 14, ma'am? I just wrote down, what was your concern on page 14, ma'am?
The statement about meeting people where they are.
Okay.
And I believe it's literally in quotations. Just, revising it to something that, we did pop-ups.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, any further comments or additions or eliminations from your motion, Commissioner Vasquez?
No, that was it.
Okay, and I want to make sure I get this right. And I will ask, I guess, the city attorney, is that motion acceptable the way Commissioner Vasquez just read it, ma'am?
Yes, Chair, that's acceptable. And rather than having you restate the whole thing, I think, you know, we're on Zoom, this is being recorded. So if you'd like to just summarize the motion, you don't have to go through every single amendment that Commissioner Vasquez has listed.
Thank you very much for that. So we do have a motion. I see Vice Chair Rucker has his hand up. Would you like to add something, sir?
I wouldn't. I was just going to, if we are there, I would love to second Commissioner Vasquez's motion.
Okay, very good. So we do have a motion and a second. I want to make sure, I see another hand raised from staff. Hugh Hesterman, would you like to say something, sir?
Yes, I would just like to add a couple points of clarification. It might be helpful to know that on all of the parks that are named after an individual, such as William Keating, Eleanor Nelson, all of those parks, we normally go by the last name for ease of alphabetizing the parks. So Patch Park was indeed named after Al Patch, but we refer to it as Patch in a listing, just like we do with all the other parks that have, Andrews Park, all the others that are named after people that do have a first name. So I'm not sure if that satisfies the question, but we're trying to be consistent in listing the parks in the same manner so as to not cause any problems. And then one other thing that I want to address regarding the safety lighting in community parks, we do have an existing concern that for areas that are to be occupied during the hours of darkness, there is a requirement that the pedestrian lighting standards be met. And so that would differ between neighborhood parks and community parks, which community parks typically are used at nighttime for, or at least portions of them, for night games and special events and that sort of thing. So there was a difference in the type of lighting is what I'm trying to point out. It's not just security lighting, it's actually for nighttime use of the park. I hope that maybe clarifies those two concerns a little bit.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Hesterman. And Commissioner Vasquez, does that help with what Hugh just explained, ma'am?
Definitely. Do we need to restate the motion?
I think at this point, I would like that. If you are ready to restate the motion, if Vice Chair Rucker would second again, and then we can take a roll call vote, ma'am.
Okay.
And again, if you need a few minutes, we can absolutely take a short recess if you would like that, or if you are ready to do it now, we can do it now.
No, that's fine. I think we can do it now. Okay, so I'm just going to drop those two revisions then from the list. That makes sense.
Perfect.
So I'm moving to amend the motion, I believe. And Andrea can interject
Chair,
if.
Yeah. Excuse me, I am going to interject.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Chair McMahon, you can just indicate the motion is stated by Commissioner Vasquez and seconded by Commissioner Rucker as amended by staff, and we'll have everything on the record and we'll know what the commission approved.
Okay. Commissioner Vasquez, does that sound reasonable to you, ma'am?
That's perfect.
Okay, we've got a motion to accept our approval recommendation of the draft Parks and Recreation Master Plan to City Council with the amendment stated by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Vice Chair Rucker. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Berruman?
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard?
Aye.
Commissioner Lujan?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rucker?
Yes.
Chair McMahon?
Aye. Very good. Exciting night for Vacaville, and this plan will be around for a long time. Again, thank you to the staff, the consultant, and also to the commissioners. Commissioner Vasquez, thank you so much for your attention to detail. It is noteworthy and it's admirable, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We are now at agenda item 10, committee reports. 10A is Youth Sports Advisory Team Committee, and that's Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. The Youth Sports Advisory Team meeting was held on February 11th of this year, and chaired by Reggie Hubbard. He brought up contract extensions were still in the works at that time due to some additional changes that needed to be made. When I'm done here, I'll ask Reggie if those have gone out because I have not received an update on that. But at that time, the leagues were okay with that and understood the contract extension changes were forthcoming. All of the leagues were getting documents ready for to conduct tryouts. I believe they have all gotten their documents in, COVID plan and insurance documents, and are prepared to do tryouts starting this Saturday and Sunday. At the time when the meeting was held on February 11th, we were in the red tier. We were in the purple tier, and so specific protocols had to be in place to allow for individual tryouts of players. And that is across the board for all leagues, Pony, Little League, USA Baseball, etc. The leagues themselves were looking forward to an improved 2021 season. It seemed we discussed, the current protocols under the purple tier with tryouts, and then looking forward to making into red tier where some things would be adjusted for youth sports, and they would allow us to conduct a partial season. So that was a considerable discussion. And then finally, Public Works updated the group, the YSAC group, that the fields with a few minor things that were to be taken care of that week, the fields were ready for play. In the time since that YSAC meeting, on February 11th, on February 19th, the California Department of Public Health issued an amended guideline for youth and adult outdoor sports, allowing outdoor sports in the moderate category to be conducted in purple tier once the case rate fell below 14. Solano County was at that case rate on February 23rd. So I believe that those leagues they were not ready to do anything right then. So they were ready. They were still putting things in place to do their tryouts and conduct their season. And I believe they've met all of those requirements and are ready to, again, do tryouts this weekend and proceed with the season after that. And that is where we are. Reggie, did I miss anything?
No, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I think you covered it all. The only thing that you missed is we'll be meeting again on March 18th. And
yes,
I want to commend you on, keep being a great liaison between the leagues and staying on top of the guidelines. When they come out, you're right on it. You're, emailing me and letting me know what's going on, so that way I can get with the leagues. And I'm sure they appreciate it, because you're right. They got everything in, and it looks like we're going to have a season. So thanks a lot for being that great liaison.
Nope. Thank you for the recognition. Thank you, Reggie, for all you do as well. That is the last end of my report. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, thank you so much, sir. It's exciting to hear those words. It looks like we're going to have a season, so we're all looking forward to that. Item 10B, Play for All Committee, Commissioner Lujan.
Hi, thank you. Yes, for that, of course, they're building as much as they can, and, given COVID and, of course, weather. So they are, of course, looking for partners and donors, and bricks as well are on sale if you would like to support them in those efforts. So you can just go online, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lujan. Agenda item 11, reports of Park Planner, Hugh Hesterman.
Yes, good evening, and thank you, for giving me a few minutes here of your time. If Tracy, would you be able to pull up the plan for the green tree, the draft green tree map? Since this has since become a public document, it was, I didn't know that at the time of our last meeting. So I just wanted to share a couple things with that if Tracy's able to find it and bring that up. Thank you, Tracy. This is the latest draft that the developer of Green Tree has on the table. And I wanted to point out specifically toward Commissioner Lujan's inquiry about our standards. The green spot in the middle there is the proposed neighborhood park of 6 acres with an adjoining 3 acres of detention. And I want to note that this neighborhood park meets our standard minimum size because it is 6 acres. However, it does exceed the neighborhood park ratio that would be required for the new residents. So this is one example of how we are narrowing in on meeting our standard for neighborhood parks. And then you'll see the other green spot to the south, which is on the left side of your screen. And that is the senior park that the neighbors had called in about the existing neighborhood, which you can see a little bit just above the park there. That is an area that was being proposed for, or I should say is being proposed for a senior design to serve the seniors, primarily the existing seniors that are already living there, and then also would serve the new ones south of Sequoia Drive. So that would be, and if that was added to our inventory, that would even further go toward increasing our, or decreasing the gap between where we are today and the 1.8 acres per 1,000 residents that we're seeking to achieve. A few other things that just in general to note, the North Village developer is currently working on concept plans for the neighborhood park in AP2. That's the area to the north. And that I'm happy to report back that it looks like we'll be able to include an off-leash area in that AP2 area plan 2. That was a amenity that the folks living in area plan 1 around Corderos Park really would like to have seen in their neighborhood park, but we weren't able to accommodate that. So it's going to be located in a position where both neighborhoods, AP1 and AP2, will both be able to access it. That's some very good news. A sort of almost a humorous note, I want to let you know that some UC Davis researchers are going to be present every couple of weeks out at Lagoon Valley Park in search of the 3-lined German cockroach, which is a non-native species that they've identified and are currently studying its reproduction habits. So if you see people in white coats at the entrance to Lagoon Valley Park, don't be concerned. It's just UC Davis researchers. I want to also report that trail usage is way up. I think I've shared that with the commission before, including some photos of just mostly since COVID. I would roughly estimate that it's more than doubled since COVID has been active. People are just out in droves using our trail systems. That is really delightful to me to see, but it also has caught us a little bit off guard in that that very usage has increased the demand not only for more and better trails, but also for trailheads, which are basically non-existent, especially in the Calgary open space and the Glen Eagle open space. And it's creating, the heavy usage is creating some problems for some of the neighbors in those areas just because of people parking in the neighborhoods. So that is actually kind of pushing up the need to get those trailheads developed and a trail plan for development underway. I am happy also to report that we have 2 scout projects right now working on some trail repairs in the Lagoon Valley Eastern Hills open space. One is working on repairing some damage that has been done to the Jepson Trail, and another scout project will be installing more trail markers. I think he's got about a little over a dozen additional trail markers that will be installed. So those who are traversing those areas can feel comfortable and seeing that their trail they're on has both mileage marks and directional marking so that people don't get lost and they can feel that they are on the right trail at the right time. Tracy, would you also be able to bring up the thank you. Yep, this is from the Farmstead subdivision. I'm just constantly reporting on the status of that. These are the new homes that are being built. This photo was taken earlier today. And then to the next slide, please, of Dreamers Park, which is part of that subdivision. You can see a lot of activity there. All the paths are nearing completion. You can see off to the right on the screen the shaded picnic structure has been installed in the barbecue. Next slide, please. There's another view of it. Some of the landscaping is in. They're starting to plant trees and shrubs. Next slide, please. The truck off to the right is a crew that's actually blowing wood chips, surfacing around the shrubs and ground cover on the right. Next slide, please. And here's one of the walkways that's being prepared. It has the asphalt base rock installed, and the DG are the brown lumps, that's decomposed granite, that will be compacted and placed there for hiking and walking trails. And next slide, please. I want to report back on Roberts Ranch. What's in front of you is the master plan that was approved for the park in this area. This is Roberts Ranch, and at the bottom of the screen you can see Fry Road, and the diagonal off to the right is the railroad tracks, just to kind of give you a little perspective here. The dog park portion is at the bottom of this, and that will be under construction very soon, both with a small dog area and a large dog area. The plan for that has been adjusted because the well site had to get moved a little bit away from an existing sewer transmission line. So I want to share that with you. And I think it was Commissioner Vasquez, or correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a question a couple meetings ago about how changes in master plans occur and when the commission is apprised of them. Well, this is an example of the master plan that was approved and then how some necessary changes are occurring. So Tracy, if you would go to the next slide, please. So at the very bottom of your screen is the area that's the large dog area. And below that, off the screen is the well site. And then below that is the small dog area. So we had to adjust the master plan for this, this community park area because of the need to maintain a separation in a future well site from an existing sewer line. And that's required as a sanitary requirement. And then also another minor change that is occurring this is in the upper right portion of your screen, is the need for an owl preserve. This is for the burrowing owls that are existing out on the site. And so the open space trail alignments are being adjusted to accommodate the installation of a permanent burrowing owl preserve. And it doesn't really affect the park acreage at all, but it does change a little bit in how the trails are aligning in that area. And then finally, I wanted to point out, you'll see the light green area, which is the beginning of the community park to the north, includes 4 pickleball courts. So this will actually be constructed in phase 2. We anticipate that may happen as soon as next year if the housing market stays strong. It'll be constructed in phases itself so that the pickleball courts with lighting would be constructed with the adjoining neighborhood. And then the landscaping, which is controlled by the irrigation that would come in from further to the north, would be installed in phase 3. So we actually will see a time period where the hardscape, meaning basically the walkways and concrete edging and that sort of thing, and the pickleball courts would all be put in along with one neighborhood, and then the landscaping would be put in with the area to the north. So this again goes back to just my continual reporting back to the commission on status of projects and potential changes that may occur in park plans as we're moving forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions. That's the end of my report.
Thank you so much. That's exciting for our neighbors down in Southtown there. It looks like there's some exciting dog parks as well as pickleball, which has been a hot topic here for the last several months. So that's exciting. Hugh, I do have one question, trail maintenance and restoration at Lagoon Valley. I know this comes up, it seems like every year about this time due to rain and cattle that graze up there. And it seems like it's a never-ending process to restore those trails. Is that all done by volunteers, or do we have Public Works or anybody up there maintaining those trails?
Yeah, a good question. So the basic trail maintenance is done pretty much entirely by volunteers. And that's as they have time available, of course. And when issues are discovered, if there are major problems, then Public Works may have to step in and bring in special equipment. A good example of that was, I think it was 2 years ago, we had a slide on the Jepson Trail in the Eastern Hills open space, and that required bringing in an excavator and some riprap and cutting back into the hillside a little bit and restoring the trail so it was usable and safe. And of course, that's beyond the scope of what a volunteer group can typically do. Although on occasion, we do have volunteers that sometimes are professional and have heavy equipment, and sometimes, they'll have the insurance and all the things the city requires to bring in specialty equipment to do special improvements and repairs. But to answer your question short, it's largely done by volunteer efforts.
Okay, and are we keeping those trails up in a satisfactory manner to where they're safe for people to enjoy?
Well, you ask a loaded question. Yes, of course they're safe. I can't say they are in good condition all the time, which is why the volunteers keep on stepping up. Some of that is just due to erosion issues that sometimes occur in a really wet year. But I would say the better portion of the damage is caused by the cattle that is grazing in those open space areas, and them traversing the land when the ground is too wet. And they create pockmarks, they start erosion, they create some issues that then require the volunteers to bang their heads because they may have to repair a trail that was just repaired the previous year.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And maybe that's something that we can address in the future, Hugh. We obviously want to make sure those trails are safe for everybody. And as you stated, it seems that more and more people are out there using those trails. So maybe that's something that we could look into in the future, just about maintaining those as more people use them.
Absolutely.
And at this time, we'll open up questions from the commission. Any questions or comments for Park Planner Hugh Hesterman? Commissioner Leonard.
Hi, Hugh. Thanks for the update. Quick question. As we're out in parks and we see things like sinkholes and things like that have popped up, what's the best way you would like us to communicate those to staff?
Sure. That's a very good question. You can use our RecWeb email address, but I think if it's clearly a maintenance-related issue, you should probably just go straight to the maintenance department and give them a call. Try to describe exactly the exact location that you are observing the problem, and if you can, snap a photo. That's always what I do. So when I'm out and about in the parks and I see an issue, I will always take a photo of it so that it can be described very clearly, and then accompany that with is the best way you can of describing the exact location.
Okay, so I took a picture of a sinkhole at Lagoon Valley, kind of on the back side of the pastures coming down. it's ongoing. It kind of gets filled in and then it opens up again. But so who that would go to, facilities or the Parks and Rec email? What would you suggest?
I would suggest it's starting with park maintenance.
Okay.
And I do just kind of a little follow-up on repeat holes that keep on showing up. It may be a situation where a volunteer has already filled an old gopher hole with dirt and it just washes back through. So we're actually experimenting with something that the Sacramento Reclamation District has experimented with for their dikes, where they have a lot of problem with gopher holes. They actually use a cement slurry dirt mixture to more permanently plug the holes. And so I can report back to the commission on how successful that is, probably in a month or two.
Yeah, it's a huge area. So not the sinkhole, but just it's a lot of land to cover for maintenance. I certainly understand that, but I'll shoot a picture out and see if there's something you guys can do about it. Thanks.
Yes, and if you have the GPS capability on your phone, especially on the trails which have not yet been marked, hopefully you all have a copy of our new map that we just completed of those trails, so you can reference the right trail. But you can also use your GPS feature to get the coordinates of the exact location if you're having difficulty describing where to find it.
Okay, thanks.
Can I add something?
Yes, sir. Is that who's speaking? I'm sorry.
Sorry, David Jacobson. I was just the email for maintenance issues in the parks is PW, like Public Works. So it's PW maintenance at cityofvacaville.com. And that goes directly into the work order system. And then it's sent off to the appropriate group, whether it's an asphalt issue, a playground issue, a lighting issue. It gets disseminated to the correct group that way. So that's the best way for things like that is PW maintenance at cityofvacaville.com. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Commissioner Leonard, thank you very much, ma'am. Any further questions? Okay, I see no further questions. Hugh, thank you so much for the presentation. And also, sir, thank you so much for all your work on the Parks and Rec Master Plan. I know you were instrumental in that and we appreciate it. Thank you again for all you do, sir.
Thank you, Chair McMahon.
Thank you. We are now at agenda item 12, reports of Recreation Manager Melody Ocampo.
Good evening, commissioners. I hope everyone can hear me all right.
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Oh, perfect. You had me scared there for a second. I've got a couple of updates here, some exciting things. As what Tracy just pulled up is an updated concept map for the Trower Park improvements. And Tracy, if you could zoom in a little bit so folks can see it to the actual map area, what you see in green. I just wanted to, but as you're doing that, I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the things that were noted at the last commission meeting, specifically bringing back in some of those skate park elements, the grassy play field area, and then some other additions that we're hoping to include, as long as budget allows, a 911 direct access phone park, like pay phone, but it wouldn't be pay. It would just be you pick up and you get a hold of PD, some historical signage, as well as some park rule signage. And then it was there before, but I just kind of want to highlight some of the futsal and basketball components because I know there's some folks who are interested in those. We also put in a second covered picnic area and then grouped some of the play elements together a little bit more, because one of the pieces of feedback as we were reviewing data really said that people wanted to be able to be nearby and be able to not only socialize, but observe their children at play. So I just kind of wanted to share this, take a minute to let you all take it in as we're starting to move forward, and we're going to be submitting our grant application to the state on the 12th, coming up real soon here. So I don't know if anyone has questions. I'll pause before I move on to my next update.
Thank you very much. Are there any commissioner comments for Melody regarding the updated park? Commissioner Vasquez?
Hi, Melody. Thank you so much for this revision. And I appreciate all your time and efforts in this project. and just wanted to thank you. It looks like a lot of the ideas that we've heard at the various meetings have been incorporated, and I'm just really excited to see this come to fruition. So thank you.
My pleasure, and thank you. I know you've been very active at those meetings, and I really appreciate that. So, all right, moving on. Unfortunately, I don't have any more visuals, but I did want to let folks know that we did hold the community meeting on Rocky Hill Trail Public Art, where we had some a new concept design that was presented, and we took some polling to get some feedback on some potential design. I don't want to unveil it to you all yet because there are still changes being made. And so we are hoping to have a special meeting of the Arts Advisory Committee the week of March 15th. That is still in scheduling right now. So, you know, I hope that it happens, and I will obviously announce that. We'll put it out on the city website calendar as well as on our Facebook page and try and promote that. But also just wanted to give you all a heads up and obviously let the public know to be on the lookout for that. We also are going to be, as kind of already mentioned, moving into the red tier soon. So some more programs will hopefully be opening up, including some sports programs. So I want everyone to kind of be on the lookout for that. I know Commissioner Thompson already talked about that a little bit, so that's really exciting. And then I also wanted to share with commissioners that we're going to be coming back to a printed events guide. So that's really exciting. Be on the lookout in your mailbox about mid-March, and you will be seeing some things as we move into the tiers. There are some things that we kind of know. There are existing COVID guidelines in place. As you know, we were able to run summer camp programs under childcare guidelines, and so we are putting forth a printed guide that lists everything that we know we can run, at least in the purple. So if things even, you know, don't go the way we want, I'm not trying to jinx us, but just hopefully we can get some folks playing and socializing and get some kids together as well to have some of that much needed social action, interaction in our camp programs. So obviously safely and again with COVID guidelines in place. So that is it for me. Sorry, I zoomed through those last three, so I'm happy to take any questions on those.
Melody, thank you. And it is exciting. Hopefully we can get COVID behind us and start getting back to all the fun stuff we do here. So we appreciate it. Are there any other any other questions or comments for Melody Ocampo from the commission? I see no hands. Melody, thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, you as well.
Agenda item 13, reports of Acting Director Reggie Hubbard.
Thank you, Commission Chair. I really don't have any updates that you guys are not already aware of. And the big one is that Director Walker will be out on extended leave for a while. And so you guys are stuck with me. So I'm here to support the commission and answer any questions. I will probably be reaching out to the commissioners individually just to, you know, chat and provide all the information to get a hold of me when needed. So I appreciate this opportunity. But I would like to say, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that this is a few of the commissioners, could be a few of the commissioners' last meeting. Commissioner McMahon, Commissioner Rucker. I'm not really sure about Commissioner Berman because you just got on here, but I think the term that you filled is probably up, and Commissioner Lujan. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate the time that you guys have spent on this commission, the dedication that you guys have showed to our department, and the support. It doesn't go unnoticed. You guys have done a tremendous job supporting us, a tremendous job tonight, going through the Park and Rec Master Plan the last few years. And I just want to say I just really appreciate that. And this commission is to be commended, and the members that are leaving should be commended on all the hard work that they've done in the last few years. I'm going to miss you guys, but I'm sure that you guys will still be active in the community, hopefully. And I'm sure we'll see you guys around somewhere. But I just wanted to show my appreciation and speak my appreciation to you guys. And just one last thing, just Commissioner Vasquez, I will say I'm not sure I've ever had a commissioner that paid attention to so much detail in what we do, and that is just commendable. I appreciate that. I'm just in awe at the eye that you have to catch things and the feedback and input that you give staff. That is just to be commended. I just really do appreciate that. So I thank you guys, and for those of you guys who will be leaving, just reach out to us. Reach out to me anyway, even if you're not on the commission. I would appreciate that. So thank you. And I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Acting Director Hubbard from the commission? Commissioner Lujan.
I just want to say thank you so much to Reggie, and those are very kind words. And I just really appreciate you guys and the staff and all your work you do. And you will be hearing from me. I'm still really active in the community. But yes, the time has been definitely different lately. And I feel like it definitely is time for someone new to step up and really continue to serve. But love the leadership. And I'll continue more in the end in our last comments. But I just do appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you, Reggie.
Absolutely. And any further questions or comments for Reggie Hubbard? Reggie, I will echo what Commissioner Lujan just said. You know, the department is in good hands with you sitting as the acting director right now. You're absolutely qualified and extremely capable to fill in the absence of Carrie Walker. So thank you so much for everything you do. Again, you've been instrumental in this Parks and Rec master plan, and it's appreciated, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we are now at item number 14, reports of the commission. And we will start at the top. Commissioner Bruman.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. I just want to thank Lauren and her staff and the staff for listening to concerns from the community and our fellow commissioners to get this master plan put to place and put into work. I know a lot of you have been doing it for the last 3.5 years, and it shows. And I just want to thank everyone. And don't know where I sit as far as, you know, Reggie was telling me, I came in on somebody else's term. So as far as that, I just wanted to say thank you, and that's all for the night.
Thank you very much, sir. Commissioner Leonard.
Thank you. I'll just echo those sentiments, and that we always want to keep working to improve and get better and reach more people and share all the amazing offerings. And just thank you to staff and all the hard work that you put into the programs. And there are 100 things that are amazing that you do every day and are just right. And we don't talk about them here all the time, but it doesn't go unnoticed by commissioners. And we're certainly appreciative of all the work that you've put into the master plan and your daily operations through COVID and things like that. So kudos to the whole department for having a phenomenal year.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I have nothing specific to report on, but those commissioners who may be leaving us, it's been a pleasure and honor to work with you, and I hope to see you around the community in the future. And thank you to staff for all of your work on, and the consultants for all of your work on the master plan. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Vasquez.
Hello, I just wanted to provide an update. I was able to attend the Rocky Hill Trail Grant art project on February 22nd, where the artist shared new and revised images to the community. And I actually forgot to ask Melody this back in her report section, but Melody, I'm wondering if we can get those images shared on the website. Only because I feel like there were very few community members there. And I think that the 4 p.m. time slot on a Monday probably just didn't work well with the community. And so we didn't have a lot of folks there. So I'm hoping that we can post those to the website, the Rocky Hill Trail Grant website, and see if folks have feedback. And if they do, where can they share that? That would be great. And also just working with Melody, given Melody and Lisa scheduling updates on trying to get this special Arts Advisory Committee meeting going. So I'll be attending that probably next week or the following. And just wanted to thank Reggie for stepping up and serving in the interim role. I know Having served in interim roles myself before, it's a really challenging position to be in. And so, just thankful probably for all the extra hours that you're going to be putting in for not sure how long, but just looking forward to working with you and for all the effort that you're going to be putting into this interim role. So thank you. And just also wanted to thank the other commissioners for it's been fun working with you all. I'm sorry it's been sad that we haven't been able to actually be together and that we've been like this through Zoom for, oh my gosh, almost a year. And just thank you all for your service to the commission and to the community.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Commissioner Lujan.
Hi, thank you so much. I agree with this last meeting and realizing how long we've been on Zoom and remembering the connection that we all have in person, but also being able to have, somewhat of a connection in Zoom. But I love all the comments. I love how, just a lot of the work that everyone's been doing, how we've been pivoting. And I first came on board with Mayor Hardy. So it's been a while, and I just, parks are a wonderful opportunity to teach others about the importance of taking care of our environment, about taking care of each other. And I just encourage us to all protect our city resources, our residents, and to stay informed and involved in the process while having a healthy and respectful dialogue. And I just want to thank the mayor, the city council, the city staff. Reggie, I think you're going to do a fabulous job as with all of the other staff. And thank you for all of your work you do and your commitment. I'd like to, thank the commission as well. You guys are really awesome, in the city of Vacaville for giving me the honor and privilege to serve you. I'm currently running many programs in this city right now that is making, really it's great working with teams that make a positive impact in our community. But it has been difficult to manage my time a little bit. So I'm looking forward, while I'm still very involved in the city of Vacaville, I am stepping down to provide a new opportunity for a new commissioner who will continue to serve and honor Vacaville's commitment to providing much needed recreational activities and opportunities that allow all residents of Vacaville to thrive and grow. I'm sure we'll continue down that path. I really loved also the new activities that have been provided during this trying time, and the growth of the special needs activities as well that I'm really a part of. And I thank you, Vacaville, and I look forward to continue to advocate and serve our city. So thank you very much again for the privilege.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lujan. Vice Chair Rucker.
Yes, thank you. I too, this will be my last meeting. Been on for 4 years, and I still remember getting sworn in with Chair McMahon and having an 8-month-old daughter who, just started walking, and now she's almost 5, and I've got another who's almost 2. And for me personally, it's just been such a, it's really been an honor being on this commission. I think, as some of you know, I am a lifelong and diehard Parks and Recreation and Leslie Knope fan. So honestly, being part of the Parks and Rec Commission in the city I love has, in parts, been a dream come true. And on a more serious notes, just really seeing how parks come together, how community comes together, what it takes to be involved in local government, and how local government, even 7 commissioners, can really make a difference on the future generations of Vacaville. So I know I for sure am looking forward to visiting these parks down the line and seeing some of the implemented changes that we even approved tonight go into effect decades down the line. And sitting on a park bench looking around telling people who couldn't care less about what I have to say, saying that I was a part of a commission that made some decisions within the city. So Reggie, Carrie, the entire parks team, I'm so grateful for all of you. Y'all done an incredible job, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. And to the commission, past, present, future, it's an honor to have my name amongst yours. So I appreciate you all.
Thank you very much for that, Vice Chair Rucker. And yes, we're down to myself. And this is likely my very last meeting as a commissioner. You know, and again, it's just been an honor and a privilege to serve this community for the past 4 years. I remember swearing in with Vice Chair Rucker, and both of us kind of looking at each other and figuring out how we got there and what we just got ourselves into. But you know, it's been a pleasure serving with you, Ryan, as well as you, Shannon, and our current commissioners as well. Commissioner Vasquez did state, you know, we unfortunately have not got to present or be together, you know, in the chambers, and that's unfortunate. So I hope that the commission sometime in the near future gets to do that and serve in that capacity in the chambers. Our staff has been just simply amazing. I have been amazed at the excellent service that this staff provides to the community. And, you know, I've got to sit on a lot of really cool projects and master plans, from VPAC to Concert Creek Walk series to the master plan that we just approved tonight. But I have to say, what I'm most proud of, and most proud of the staff, is just with all the events that have taken place over the past year, COVID, you know, this department became a lifeline for our seniors and for our vulnerable populations. We, you know, in the beginning of the year, the staff put together a senior help hotline, which delivered groceries and supplies and things that seniors needed. You know, when we first started this, it was very uncertain. You know, and I don't think that any of us thought it was going to be around this long. Unfortunately, it is. I think we're getting towards the end of it. I hope the Senior Help Hotline turned into a senior meals program, which, you know, was a partnership with our local restaurants. And we're still delivering, I believe, 3 nights a week to, you know, approximately 50 seniors each evening. So that's a lot of meals going out. So it's really exciting to see that this department and the city taking care of our seniors and our vulnerable populations during this time. You know, in August, we experienced these devastating fires. The next day, this department opened up evacuation centers. And, you know, we had evacuees in these evacuation centers throughout our community centers. These are people that just lost every single thing they owned. And, you know, again, the department staff was there for them. They were there for everything they needed, from, you know, just help, food, clothing, anything you could think of, they were there. And so, again, I applaud you. It has been, you know, this past year has been a challenge for many people. This department stepped up, and I'm extremely proud to be a part of it and to be a part of this team. And, you know, I will miss these meetings, but I do know that I've made a lot of great friends and we will continue to be engaged in the community, and we'll continue to do great things together. So with that said, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege, and it's much appreciated to the staff and to our fellow commissioners. With that said, I would like to adjourn the meeting until Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. Good night, Vacaville.